Hey, it's Dr. J. Hi, students. I am here to do another video lecture for you on Chapter 3. Chapter 3 is Negotiating Long Term for Mutual Benefit. So the chapter goes on significantly about negotiating factors. So negotiating factors within different cultures involves a lot of different things, from understanding entertainment to understanding conversation to understanding how to have proper small talk, understanding slang, dress codes, different things like this. These are all a part of negotiating factors. And it's also important to realize that in different countries, negotiations happen in different formats. So it can happen, at dinner, it could happen in an office, it could happen, in a formalized meeting or not. It just depends on what the culture is of the country that you're negotiating with. All right? So it talks about the cultural baggages. So an example of cultural baggage that the book doesn't talk about is using slang, using assumed slang, and also not fully understanding the language barrier between different cultures and different creeds of people. It's important to understand that something that may be common knowledge for you may not be common knowledge for somebody from a different culture or even in a different country. Okay? Talks about interpreters and translators. These are vital for negotiating for benefit. So, when you're talking about translators and interpreters, you're not only talking about cultural differences, you're talking about making sure that you are assessing the right ability to understand those that may have disabilities, whether they're hearing impaired, visually impaired. They may have some kind of learning disability that impairs their understanding for communicating or even to communicate with you. So it needs to be understood that interpreters and translators are vital to the process for negotiation. Okay? Assumptions and negotiating. So some assumptions we have can be those that are right or wrong, appropriate or non appropriate. Assumptions really go into keeping an awareness of the cultural differences as an essential concept for understanding what's actually going on. Okay? I think the book talks a little bit about that. Cultural differences concerning nonverbal behavior are often not as obvious. Okay, talks about that later on in the chapter as well. So the framework for international business negotiations. So these are all some of the basic frameworks. There's more than these frameworks, but there's some other ones. I recommend doing some additional research, just finding out what else is going on with the frameworks for international business negotiations. But the first one is the basic concept of negotiation process. That's the very first one, and it's first because that's exactly what it is, basic concepts. So negotiations are just that. They're, two people or two companies going back and forth with ideas for what they want out of a situation transactually and what somebody else is wanting contractually. All right. It goes into the significance of the type of issue, the concern of the protocol. Protocol is important. Being in the military for 10 years, I learned a lot about protocol, but even outside of the military, protocol is just as vital to any organization than it is to the military as well. All right, you talk about the persuasive nature in arguments. Now, that one, in my professional opinion, is not as heavy as the other ones that preceded because, when you're negotiating, of course, it's going to involve, two parties going back and forth or companies going back and forth. But it also involves the ability to understand the emotional and logical approach to the fairness of the negotiation as well. Okay? All right. It goes into negotiations with different countries and different cultures. The book talks about that. And it gives you a really interesting perspective of the framework between different cultures. So you may want to look at those and even compare the different framework factors. All right. Talks about the face-to-face with different negotiators and the differences and, what's considered normal, what's not considered normal. and just gaining a better understanding and idea of how the cultures work within. All right. I know I was in a different country a couple of years back and found out that it is not kosher to put your foot towards somebody. Whether you're sitting or standing or leaning, the bottom of your foot in that particular culture was considered disrespectful to do. So that was an interesting learning experience. So, successful negotiating procedures. So there's some outlines for different successful negotiating procedures, no matter what you're, negotiating with. It's important. The first one says to study your own culture's negotiating script. Okay. Now that depends on what organization you work for. Google's negotiating script is different than Microsoft's negotiating script. An academic negotiating script is different than a non-academic negotiating script. So just make sure that not only are you looking at your culture's negotiating script, but you're also looking at your organizational negotiating script as well. All right. Okay. So pretty much that was chapter 3 in a nutshell. And I'm sure there's some other topics here that you may have questions on. If you do, you're more than welcome to email me, call me, or come by my office. I am Dr. J, and I am here for your success. Have a wonderful day.